Welcome to this rapid revision video on Wyatt Earp and the gunfight at the OK Corral. Again, more Wild West mythology here. If we could be certain that big moustaches make big lawmen, as we saw with Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, surely Wyatt Earp has got to be one of the best. But he's a complex character. Was he more of a villain himself? What is the truth of what really went on at the OK Corral? And what should Wyatt Earp's legacy be? Wyatt Earp and the OK Corral in 1881. Here he is again. Wyatt Earp was one of the icons of the so-called Wild West. People like him were often chosen for law and order positions like sheriff. Rowdy cowtowns and mining settlements were the perfect environment for both criminals and hard men who were appointed, sometimes by themselves, to clean up the town. Sometimes even lawmen like Earp could act in ways that were rather similar to the thugs they were supposed to be rounding up, as shown by these dead bodies in a postcard of the time. So how did these fellas end up in their caskets? Let's look into it. Earp's early career. That's better. In 1874, Earp was arrested for participating in a barroom brawl in Wichita. At the same time, a group of rowdy cowboys came to town. Earp helped the deputy marshal sort them out. As a result, the mayor offered him the post of deputy marshal. He was then promoted to marshal in Dodge City, one of the most legendary and rough towns of the era. In 1879, he decided to move to Tombstone, Arizona. Mine barons versus cowboys. Tombstone, Arizona was a mining boomtown controlled by rich businessmen. Pitted against them was a faction of cowboys, led by the Clanton and McClary families. The rich businessmen hired Wyatt Earp in 1880 to be deputy sheriff to clear up the town. By 1881, Earp and his two brothers were dealing with rustling, horse and mule thefts, but the Clantons and McClarys started robbing stagecoaches too. Some also suspected the Earps to be doing this as well. This kind of feeds into the murky life of the Wild West lawman. Things were about to come to a head though between the Earps and their supporting of the businessmen and the cowboys led by the Clantons and McClarys. This culminated in the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral. On the 26th of October 1881, the Earps and local gunslinger, gambler and dentist Doc Holliday, he's an interesting fella, advanced down the main street in Tombstone to the OK Corral where they confronted the cowboys. A corral is a stock enclosure for cattle. Someone in the group cocked a gun and then shooting erupted. The Earps shot dead Tom and Frank McClary and Billy Clanton in a hail of lead. So that's how they ended up in these caskets. Virgil Earp, who was Wyatt's brother and the city marshal, claimed that they had only wanted to arrest the men, but that the Clantons and McClarys had opened fire first. Many people doubted this, thinking that really the Earps were shooting first and asking questions later. What happened in the aftermath then? The gunfight didn't stop the trouble. Virgil Earp was himself shot and wounded later. Morgan Earp was shot dead. Wyatt embarked on his own personal vendetta. Revenge spurred him to shoot and kill the two men who shot his brothers. Wyatt Earp argued that this was justice, but few agreed, and opinion had begun to turn against him. After all, by the 1880s, there was often some more stability in the so-called Wild West as there had been before, and there really wasn't space for someone like Wyatt Earp to destabilise it. Wyatt's violent response to violence, fighting fire with more fire, had made matters worse. Wyatt and Virgil Earp eventually fled Tombstone. That wasn't the end of his story though. He later wrote about his experiences, started to create his own mythology, before Wyatt Earp died in 1929, aged 80. And there he is later in life. Some final points then. Wyatt Earp was emblematic of the problematic lawmen of the West. His own background was violent and lawless, and the gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881 is one of the few genuine Wild West shootouts. Really, with the guns of the time, they weren't that easy to take part in. His crime-fighting style used more violence, and this eventually drove him and his family out of Tombstone. Lawmen like Earp disappeared as federal authority took over the more remote, lawless and violent territories, and states and stability prevailed. And that concludes this rapid revision video. I hope it's been useful. If it has, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more of the same. If you've got another topic you would like me to cover, pop it down in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. But for now, thanks for watching and goodbye.